because this guy is a direct injection motor, but there are no superchargers or turbos on it. That's relatively normal by today's standards. As I mentioned, direct injection is a big part of how they get so much power out of it, but also how they get pretty good MPG. This 4,100-pound car goes to 60 in a little over 5 seconds while still delivering 1726 EPA rating. Now, while this car competes with some German brands that offer a lot of optional or even standard all-wheel drive, doesn't happen here on the Genesis. Again, part of the cost containment strategy, rear-wheel drive only, and as you can see, the engine's mounted traditionally, longitudinally, with plenty of it in front of the axle line right here. You know, when you're a car like this, competing with some serious German and established Asian competition, you've got to do the basics right first, and I can report the Genesis does that. Very high refined ride quality. Even though you've got a sports suspension, it biases more toward comfort than toward sport. That may disappoint you if you're looking for some kind of a bargain AMG ride, but at this price, you couldn't get there. Along those lines, the suspension, of course, doesn't communicate back that much road. The steering doesn't either. It's going to be more of a comfortable, responsive car than an extremely performance-oriented car. The engine, even under full load, never gets to any weird, grindy notes. That's another important win they've got to do here, because that doesn't sound like performance usually. It generally just sounds like cheap when an engine degrades into ugly noises. Now, this lane departure technology, this switch over here, only works at 43 miles an hour and above, according to Hyundai. That leaves out a lot of driving where you don't get the assistance of it. I do find, though, that it's pretty well calibrated in terms of when it picks up the line and decides to alert you. A lot of cars don't do all that well, but it doesn't start till a relatively high speed. Now, speaking of getting up to speed, that's one thing this car does really well in its cruiser fashion. I'm here on a twisty road in what is a big car with a pretty good amount of pounds on the hoof, 4,100 as I mentioned, and it has no problem getting up out of its own way. That's because it makes its power versus pretty straightforward displacement and precise injection, as opposed to any turbochargers or blower in there, which tend to introduce a little bit of delay. In sum, this car goes after the luxury brands at a lower price and nails the basics. In that alone, it's quite appealing. But if you really want to go high-techy CNET style, you're going to be finding some key stuff missing. Okay, pricing a Genesis 5-liter R-Spec is kind of a simple procedure. It's $47,400 delivered with the technology you see, and that's the technology you get. You can't take this thing any further CNET style with options because there ain't any. Now, the picture, as I've shown you, is one of kind of a middle ground. The glass is half empty and half full in terms of the kinds of tech and the sophistication of them. But you have to like this car as delivered.